Just about every digital drawing software utilizes layers in some way. In Adobe Fresco, there are 3 different types of layers. No, 4, 5 different, 6, there's actually 6 different types of layers if you really think about it. In this video, we're going to talk about all of them, the differences between them. We're talking about different things you can do with your layers to control the way your image looks. Layers are just like sheets of transparent paper stacked up so you can keep things separate. They're like an onion. They smell bad. That's the joke. Even if you think you have a solid handle on layers, I think there's probably something in this video that you're going to learn, because there's a lot of different stuff that you can do with layers in Adobe Fresco that I didn't know about when I started, and even well into using it. I feel like I'm learning new stuff all the time. Let's slice this onion up. I think we got to leave the onion thing behind. Now you may be thinking, how on earth are there 6 different types of layers? Well, let me tell you what they are. First one is pixel-based layers. This is just a layer for pixel-based art. It's as simple as that. The next kind is a vector layer. A vector layer is the same thing, but for vector art. These need to be on a separate layer from pixel art so that they can maintain their vectorness. You can't have pixel and vector on the same layer because they're not made the same way. So they just can't exist in each other's world. It's like the Little Mermaid.
He's a human. You're a mermaid.
I don't care.
Ariel and that dumb guy. The next kind of layer is a picture layer. If you go and import an image into your Fresco document, it's going to come in as a picture layer. The cool thing about picture layers is that you can move them outside of your artboard to use as reference, and they're not going to get cut off. You'll still be able to see them. If you try to do this with a pixel layer and you move it outside your artboard, it's just going to get cut off and it'll be gone. There is a setting to make that outside of the preview board thing work, and I believe it's defaulted to work. But if it doesn't, you just go up into your settings and then you choose artboard preview and make sure that is checked. The next type of layer is a text layer. If you use the text tool and you start making something out of text, it's going to make a new layer. You do have the option to convert that text layer to either a pixel layer or a vector layer if you want to further customize it and use it as just like a regular drawing. And there's adjustment layers. With these, it just makes a new layer, and that's where you can do your, color adjustments, hue, saturation, brightness, contrast, all that kind of thing. And then the last one is a motion layer. When you start using motion, it's going to convert your layer into a motion layer. All right, so let's dive into the side menu over here. There's a lot of stuff over here, and it can be a little overwhelming at first, but it's not that bad. Just stick with me, and you will have a good understanding of all the stuff that's there. The first thing you'll see is just your layers. When this is toggled on, you will see your layers. They'll just show up right here. If you don't want to see them, you just tap it again, and they're gone. Below that is your layer properties. In this menu, you can control your blend mode, which is just how the art works with the other layers. This is great when you are doing some stuff, layering colors to create new colors, like I often do when I'm using like the razor brushes. If you don't know what I'm talking about here, no big deal. I'll link a video below and you can check it out afterwards. And then another one that I use relatively often is screen. Screen is a fun one when you want to use some like overall texture, and I'll quickly show you how this works. When I tap it here, it doesn't really do anything besides hide that layer, but I think if I show you how it works, you'll understand a little bit more. Fill this in. So if we come over to our layers property and we change this to screen, you'll see nothing happened. The reason nothing happened is because screen allows the artwork to come through whatever's black on that layer. So because the whole layer is black, everything comes through. If instead of it all being black, fill this layer in white, we don't see anything. But now if I paint on this layer in black, you'll see anywhere I paint, that layer comes through. So what you'll do is you'll make a new layer, you will fill it in white, and then you will get a texture brush. I'll just grab one from this Woodland Wonderland Retro Splico set, which I will link below if you're interested. And now in black, I'm just going to draw in some texture. And if we now set this layer to screen, you'll see our artwork is there, but we're getting this texture, and we can kind of control how much texture goes in there. Pretty neat. Within the layer properties, you'll see below blend mode is opacity. So here you can just bring down the opacity of the layer, and you'll start to see the layers that are below it showing through. Not really shining, just showing. And you can adjust this however you want. You want just a little bit, or you want a lot. That's how you do it. Below that, you will see grids. This isn't part of the layers experience, so we're going to skip that for now, but it just allows you to make some grids for your artwork if you would like that kind of thing. Below that is just for when you're sharing your document with other people and you want to leave comments back and forth. You don't have to worry about that. It's not part of layers. It's not what we're talking about in this video. You hit the eyeball, the layer turns off. You'll see a little line through it. That's how you know it's off. It shows up in the icon and on the layer itself. You can turn that back on. You can do that with a group of layers as well. And speaking of grouping layers, you can group layers by just holding and dragging them onto another layer, and then you get a little group full of layers. It's handy. And if you want to move them individually, all you have to do is go inside that folder by double tapping, and then you can move them individually on their own. Below that is the clipping mask option. What this does is it makes the layer you have selected become a clipping mask to the layer below. What a clipping mask does is it makes it so that the artwork on that layer only shows up within the artwork on the layer below. So for example, if I select this layer with the blue word on it and make that a clipping mask to layers, you'll see the blue only shows up within the artwork on the layer below. And on the layer below, we just have the word layers. So we turn that off. It's obviously going to turn off the blue as well. So when something is a clipping mask like this, you could undo it by just tapping that clipping mask button again. This can be a fun feature if you want to like have a texture or an image appear within a shape. So for example, if I come over here to the image tool and I go and grab a photo, like my dumb face from my last thumbnail, I can make this a clipping mask, and then I can move it around and it only appears within those letters. Isn't that fun? Wow. Can you believe it? The next item is adjustment layers. We tap on this, we'll see some options here. We've got clip, brightness, contrast, hue saturation, color balance. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I've actually never used the clip one before, and I'm only realizing that right now. I don't even know what it does. So we're gonna find out together. Let's do clip. Okay. Oh. It's not, I know what it does. That's just an extra way to do it. We're going to come back to this. There's 3 kinds of adjustment layers that you can do. There is brightness, contrast, hue saturation, and color balance. We do brightness contrast. You know what this does. It just adjusts the brightness and contrast. Now you'll notice it is affecting all of the layers because it is on top of all these layers. When something is above the layer, it affects things below it, unless it's a clipping mask. So for example, we've got this brightness all the way up. It's super bright, but we really only wanted to do it to the can you believe it layer. So what we can do is clip it to that layer with a clipping mask, and that's what that clip was. It just allows you to set it from the beginning, and I didn't realize that. I thought I always just do it afterwards. That's a little time saver tip. Clip it, you'll see it's only affecting that layer. Pretty handy. Now let's say, for example, we are on the middle blue layer and we do a hue saturation one, just move this saturation way over like this, you'll see it's affecting the layer and wow, but not the can you believe it, because that layer is above the others. And again, we could still clip this specifically to just that one layer if we wanted to. You could also clip an adjustment layer to a group. Works just the same. A little pro tip is if you are working on a color system and you're not sure if there's enough value or contrast within that color palette you're working with, if you turn this on and everything looks like it's the same gray, you need to adjust your value a little bit so there's a little bit more visual interest within your image. Now below that, there is 3 dots, which means there's a whole lot going on under there. So we tap on this, we've got all these different actions that pertain to layers. You'll see the first one is add a layer. It's just on there again, even though there's one right up above it there. There's the hide one. Again, you know, we already have a button for that. Why it's in here again, who knows? We've got hide all other layers, which is a handy thing. So when you use that, it's going to hide everything but the layer you have selected. And then you could show all other layers to turn it back on. We've got clear layer, which will erase the artwork within that layer. And we've got delete layer, which will just get rid of the layer altogether. If you make a selection in one of your layers, you can copy that selection. Next, you'll see paste selection. This is if you have something selected with a selection tool. For example, if I'm on the layers layer and I use the magic wand and I select this L, I can come over to my layer actions and I can go to copy selection, and then I can go to paste selection. And now I have this L on its own layer. Below that, you'll see select multiple. This is so that you can select multiple layers at once. If you wanted to cut a layer from one document and paste it into another document, that's also another thing. You can copy and paste from one file into another file. So I could cut a layer from here, close this, open up a new document or an existing document and then paste that layer into that document. Below that, we have create empty mask. So if we tap that, you'll see our layer gets a little side action thing. It's a side layer. This is a layer mask. So if I come down to the bottom and I tap this hide layer option and then fill this in black, you'll see we've got this red layer over everything, and this is a mask. Now, if we toggle back, we can see that's the artwork, and then this is the mask and what it's hiding. So if I come back to reveal layer and grab a brush, then I can just sort of start painting in the area that I want to reveal. And you'll see in that little red icon, the area that I just did as reveal. So when we click off of this, it's just going to show you what it's previewing like. The cool thing about this is it's non-destructive within the layer. So we've got like all this cool texture here, but the original artwork is still intact. And you can toggle it on and off with this little mask button on the right. Another thing I'd like to point out here is that the wow layer is a vector layer. You'll notice by the little circle icon on that layer, and we're getting a pixel-based texture on top of that vector layer. So we're able to have vector artwork, bring in this texture, but not have to convert that original artwork to a pixel layer. This is like the one way you can have pixel and vector together in one layer, because it's sort of not really the same. It's a layer with a piggyback on it. So if I come back to my vector layer and grab a vector brush, I can draw on this layer and it'll, show up in the artwork, but it's still affected by that mask. So we can come back to the mask layer, color in as much of that as we want. Below that, you'll see mask layer contents. So what this does is instead of doing an empty mask, when you select this, it creates a mask based on what is already on that artwork. So for example, on this blue layer, it made a mask around those letters. The next option is for reference layers. What this does is it allows you to use the paint bucket to fill in color of that artwork on its own separate layer. So this is really helpful when you're doing line work and you want to keep the line work separate from the fill color. So let's say I drew this face of a bird, a very good bird, if we're being honest, and it has these feathers up here, and I don't know what to tell you. This is what we drew. We want to keep this artwork just pristine because it's very good, and I want to keep my colors separate. So what we do is we come over onto our layer where you'll also see that same menu repopulated. You can either get this layer actions menu over here with the dots or by just tapping on the layer itself. So a lot of this stuff feels like there's so much, but it's just sort of repeating. So what we can do here is set as reference. And when your layer is a reference, you'll notice it's got that little reference layer icon over it. So now if we make a new layer, come over here and grab a nice orange for the beak, I can fill this in, grab this red, fill that in, give it some yellow eyes, this terrible thing here. But you'll see when we look at the layers, we've got the line work layer, we turn that off, and we just have the color layer. Nice and handy. When you're done using it, you want to remember to turn off the reference, because otherwise you may draw something on another layer and try to fill it in, and you can't figure out why it's just filling in the whole page. It's because your reference layer is set to the duck lines. You got to turn off the duck lines. All right, get this duck out of my face. I need you to edit that duck into a good drawing, okay? No, it doesn't have to be a duck, just anything that's good. Lock layer. Lock the layer. Can't mess with it. It's locked. Can't do anything. Sometimes I accidentally lock layers and I don't understand what's happening and I go, oh, it's locked. Unlock the layer. Merge down. Those layers become one layer. A little warning, you'll notice that wow, as you remember, is a vector layer, but this layer is not. If I just casually merge this down, you'll see, didn't warn me, didn't say anything. However, my wow artwork is no longer vector. No. You'll see there's one icon on this layer. It is a pixel layer. Because as I said before, vectors and pixels cannot coexist on the same layer. They cannot. Their realities will never touch. This is why you can't use pixel brushes as vector, which is a question I'm asked all the time. They're so different. they're not even in the same world. So it's important that your artwork is vector, be extra careful not to merge it accidentally with a pixel layer, because it will be contaminated with the pixels. The magic math will be gone forever. Now, something that you can do with pixel layers, but not with vector layers, is lock the transparency. So what that means is when you are on a pixel layer, if you come over here to lock transparency, you can grab another color and then color on this layer, and it's only going to show up within the artwork on that layer. It won't let you color anywhere but where there is already artwork. This video is actually part of a series of deep dives into different aspects of Adobe Fresco. There's another one that goes into all the different aspects of brushes, pixel brushes, vector brushes, live brushes. The other goes into the ins and outs of selections and the transform tool, including liquify. You can click on one right here. I think you'll find it helpful. And good talk. Thank you.